Welcome back to me reading Transported, a Wings of Fire story. This time, it's chapter 33. As usual, if this is your first time watching this little series, I recommend you to watch the previous chapters or read them yourself. Now let's begin. This chapter's name is Unforeseen Consequences. You know I had to do it like that. Okay, let's start. Okay, so let me get this straight real quick. Daniel said, "This guy is your brother, and not some palace guard that will turn us into the queen." Winter nodded. "Yes, that's correct. Right, Hailstorm?" He looked to his brother, who was eyeing Daniel intently. "Are you sure we can trust him, Winter? I mean, he's a skywing after all," Hailstorm said, acting like Daniel couldn't hear him, though he was only a few steps away. "Look, Hailstorm, I'm sorry for jumping you. I just thought you were attacking or going to turn us in, so I tackled you," Daniel said apologetically. "If I had known who you were, I wouldn't have." Hailstorm wasn't buying it. "Words can be deceiving. You would know best considering who your queen was." "I have no queen," Daniel interjected, and this caught Winter and Hailstorm's attention. "I live by my own rules." He shot them a smile, but the only thing they returned was shock. "What do you mean you don't have a queen? Doesn't every tribe have one?" Hailstorm asked. "Yeah, what about Queen Ruby, the current queen of the Skywings?" Winter continued. "Ha!" Daniel laughed. "I don't care. I don't see myself as part of her tribe, so she can do what she likes. What if she commanded you to do something? Even if you're not part of her tribe, in your eyes, you would surely do what she said, right?" Winter asked. "If it's within reason, sure," Daniel responded. "What's considered within reason?" Hailstorm said. "Like a small favor. Geez, can you guys not understand what I'm saying, or do I have to put it bluntly for you to understand?" The others looked at him questionably. Daniel placed a talon to his face. "If she gave me a command that requires more than a small movement or a verbal answer, I'd tell her to shove it. Does that clear it up for you?" Winter's and Hailstorm's eyes went wide, and Daniel guessed they couldn't imagine talking back to their queen like that. "But she's not my queen. None of them are. So I'm not obliged to follow anything they say. I'll do it on my own terms." There we go, Daniel. You are a patriot. You follow old Uncle Sam and America. Okay, jokes aside, let's continue. "But she's your queen," Winter said, to which Daniel responded once again. "Not my queen. I don't have one." "What about other queens? How would you treat them?" Hailstorm asked. Daniel noticed a look on his face when he asked him. He must be thinking on what I'd be like towards their own queen. Daniel stayed silent before he answered. "I'd treat them like anyone else. I'll say hello, goodbye, and so on. But don't expect me to bow and do all that respective rubbish." Winter and Hailstorm looked shocked beyond belief, and that's when Star walked next to them. Now she was also intrigued. "But you must have some sort of leader, or someone you look up to, right?" Daniel's face fell. "I did. Once upon a time I did. But they're dead now. So I'm on my own. I make my own rules." The memory of his parents flashed through his mind. He sighed. "Forget it. They're not important anymore. Let's just get a move on already. Winter, are you sure your brother won't turn us in? Because it's pretty clear he's not fond of me." Daniel looked at Hailstorm, who was just standing there, menacingly. "Oh boy. Why are you even here, Hailstorm? I thought only lower ranked individuals were supposed to work these jobs," Daniel suddenly asked. "You know about the circles?" Hailstorm replied, slightly surprised. "He knows a lot. Like, a lot," Winter answered for him, to which Daniel nodded. "Yeah, what he said," Daniel replied. "But continuing my question, why are you working here? Shouldn't someone else be doing this?" Now Winter looked to his brother with curious eyes. "Yeah, why are you here? Aren't you in the first circle?" Hailstorm looked down at his brother with a sort of sad eyes. "Well, yes, but technically no. I'm still in the first circle officially. But after the queen learned about what we did in the trials, she put me in seventh circle duty for a month to make up for it, Hailstorm stated. Though it'll probably only last a few weeks since the queen is making plans for our family to visit you in school since you're still alive. What? Winter shouted as he looked to his brother with scared eyes. Tell me you're joking. Please! Though Hailstorm only shook his head. I'm sorry, Winter, but I think it's going to be confirmed. And with this, Winter broke down completely, failing to hide his emotions. No, 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 why, why? He broke down right there on the cold ice. Why can't they just leave me alone? They already messed up my life. Do they get the pleasure out from it? Tears fell down the side of his cheeks, and Daniel couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Jesus, his parents must be so much worse than I imagined. No wonder he's always so cold. Hey, Winter, he'll be all right, okay? Daniel said in an attempt to comfort him. He lightly wrapped a wing around his back. It wasn't in a romantic way, more of a way to say, I'm here for you. Winter looked up to meet Daniel's eyes. It's going to be all right. I'm by your side. Always. That's what friends are for. After hearing this, Winter wiped a tear from his cheek before genuinely smiling. Not a quick smirk, like the ones he'd shot Daniel on the way there, but an actual, genuinely happy smile. Thanks, Hurricane, he said finally before he got up on all fours again. No problem. Now I say, it's about time we get out of this icy place, Daniel joked. Winter nodded. Yeah, let's go. He turned to his brother. Well, I guess I'll see you later. Hailstorm laughed. Hey, don't worry about it. From the looks of it, you got yourself a loyal friend. He turned to Daniel and gave him a sort of bow. Whoa, what's with all the sudden respect? Daniel asked jokingly. Is this some sort of tradition I don't know? He quickly returned the bow back to Hailstorm as he awaited his response. Oh, it's just a way we royals greet one another, Winter explained. Though this just made Daniel more puzzled. Oh, I see. But I'm not royalty. Why bow to me? Well, it's complicated. But it just means I have respect for you, Hailstorm said. Mainly because you managed to make my brother smile for once. And that's something not even I can do sometimes. Winter whacked him with his wing. Oh, shut up. Daniel laughed. You two have an incredible bond, you know that? He smiled. Anyways, time to go. We should get back to the others. Soon, Daniel started to walk away as he made his way back to where they came from. He assumed that they would simply be able to walk around the great ice cliff again like they did before. However, he was stopped dead in his tracks when Hailstorm called out to him. Hey, you can't go that way! Daniel looked back, confused. What? Why not? There's guards posted around the perimeter at this time of day. If you want to get out of here without being spotted, you'll have to sneak around inside of the kingdom, Hailstorm explained. Daniel fell silent. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. How are we supposed to make it through the kingdom without getting caught? A tense, worryful silence fell over the group of dragons. Well, I mean, we would need someone who knew the Ice Kingdom like the back of their talon in order to get out, Star pointed out. And also someone who's welcome in the kingdom, Winter added. There were a few moments of silence. Okay. Immediately, everyone turned to Hailstorm. He looked at each of them before sighing intently. There's no talking you out, is there? Brother, Winter said slowly. Please, we need you. Hailstorm sighed once more as he looked his brother deep in the eyes. Winter stared back intently. Fine, Hailstorm said after a tense staring contest. Follow me. We don't have much time. Swiftly he took off over the mounds of snow, and Daniel was quick to follow. Winter and Star picked up too, and in a matter of moments they were all off, running through the snow as the sun began to set above. Hailstorm ran for what felt like hours on end. Clearly he was much more in shape than Daniel and the others, but they kept up. They had to they had to, considering he was their only way out. Damn, he's fast, Daniel thought as he looked up to Hailstorm ahead over him. I guess years of training from his parents paid off. However, this thought soon passed, and he shut his mind off for the time being. His sole focus on getting out of this place alive. They ran for a little while, for a little longer before Hailstorm stopped. Daniel stopped as well, or at least tried to. His claws couldn't dig into the ice well, and he ended up skidding along the ground and into a surprisingly soft, yet very cold mound of cloudy white snow. All right, this is as far as I can take you, Hailstorm spoke. What? Why? Daniel cried as he freed his head from the snowy pile. I cannot leave until my duties have been completed. But if you take that route, you'll end up at the base of the great ice cliff, Hailstorm explained. He pointed a sharp claw to a small and dark cave, which appeared to be carved out inside a mound of snow with hardened frost breath. I wish you dragons good luck on your grand escape. He took a kind bow once again. I understand. Thanks for what you've done for us, Daniel said as he returned the bow. Oh, and there's no need for all the formal language. All right? Hailstorm laughed as Winter and Star took Daniel's side. All right, then. He spoke back to Daniel, not exactly understanding what the word "ite" meant, but assumed it was a good thing. I'll catch you guys later. Good luck. Daniel nodded before he took the lead. He squeezed through the small dark gap, and to be honest, it didn't get better. The walls were not getting any tighter to walk through, but the fact that there wasn't any light sort of gave Daniel a large feeling of claustrophobia. He was imagining the worst possible scenarios. What if this tunnel ends and we're put straight into the clutches of the queens? What if I get stuck in here and I can't get out? It wasn't helping. They pressed forward as Daniel tried his best to not think about these very bad but very unlikely situations. You guys doing all right back there? Daniel asked, hoping to forget about his scenarios with a little small talk. Yeah, I'm fine. A little tight, but I'm fine, Star said. Though, to be honest, it would be much better if we could see where we're going. Agreed, Winter chimed in from the back of the line. However, the need for light was gone. A few moments of silence later, as the outside sun began to leak into the cave up ahead. Hey guys, I think I see an exit, Daniel spoke, which lifted the falling spirits of the dragons with hope for an escape from the darkness. Step after step, the dragons continued down the tunnel towards the light. However, now it did appear like the walls were closing in tighter and tighter. They pressed forward, despite the uneasy feeling rising in their chests, and as the light drew closer, voices could be heard. Are you sure this is necessary? Spoke one voice, an older male one. To tell you the truth, I'm not sure. However, if the queen deems it so, then we must follow her orders, spoke another. Why did Glacier choose her to take her place? She's too young. She's not ready yet. She never specified why, but apparently she had her own reasons to do so. Either way, Queen Snowfall is in charge for the time being, and she's called for all the guards to attend this so-called gathering. Their first voice sighed profusely. Well, very well then. Let us attend to her speech. However, I'm not sure what she has in plan. Daniel listened deeply as the voices left, though he didn't ponder as they finally arrived to the end of the cave. Daniel squeezed out with some difficulties, but he succeeded. Soon Star and Winter followed behind and back out into the cool air. Since they were closer to the great ice cliff and much further south than they once were, it was a little warmer, not by much, but it was still noticeable, although it was still well beyond freezing, despite the slight temperature rise. Daniel looked back and smiled. Hailstorm was telling the truth. They had successfully made it out of the kingdom thanks to the tunnel. Now all that's left is to get past the great ice cliff. However, soon Winter and Star both called out for him. Hey, come check this out! Star called to him in a hushed voice. The wind picked up as snow blew past them. Daniel waddled over, thanks to the cold, and he took a look at what Star and Winter was seeing. This doesn't look very good for us, does it? Winter said grimly. Nope, not at all. Daniel responded with the same grim tone. The trio of dragons were mounted on a small cliff covered in soft snow as they looked down several meters to where a large army of Icewing soldiers gathered at the base of the great ice cliff. Up at the front was none other than Queen Snowfall herself, accompanied by her acquaintance, Lynx. She raised her arms. Dragons don't have arms, they got legs, they're quadrupeds. Okay, jokes aside, let's continue. Raised her arms and talons to quiet down the crowded. They wait a minute. And talons to quiet down the crowded. Sure, whatever. The crowd. Okay, which worked pretty well to Daniel's surprise. Attention, please! Snowfall spoke aloud. However, it really wasn't needed, since it was clear the crowd. I'll just say crowd. Crowd was already listening attentively. Yesterday night, a group of suspicious dragons were sighted near the Ice Kingdom border. She pointed a claw towards the wall behind her, indicating it to be the border. And before any of you ask, according to one of the watch parties, they were not Ice Wings. In fact, two of them were spotted to be a sand. I stumble over it twice. To be a Skywing and a Nightwing. There was a tense growl at the word Nightwing, and Snowfall paused for a breath before she continued her speech. This Skywing was claimed to have remarkable flight speed, far beyond what any of us have ever witnessed. She paused, and there was another gap of silence. It is for these reasons I have asked for all the royal guards to participate in this search, as we do not know what these dragons are capable of. Please start your preparations as the search will begin shortly. Snowfall concluded her speech as a loud chatter of dragons and moving talons filled the air. Daniel ducked back down behind the top of the small cliff ledge to avoid being accidentally spotted. Okay, so what's the plan here? How do we get out of this? He spoke to Winter and Star. Well, we could go back into the tunnel and hide there until the coast is clear. Star offered, and Winter agreed. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. He started. However, he was interrupted by a large shout. Look out! Next moment, there was a sudden large explosion-like sound as the ground rumbled drastically. The sounds of yelling and shrieking dragons rang in their ears as they all fell to the ground. Cracks began to open up beneath them, and an ominous glow emitted from the from the depths of Daniel's bag. Daniel spotted this and pulled out whatever was making such light, and his heart skipped multiple beats when he did so. It was the scroll. It shone a dark black glow, an evil black glow. Ooh. It was almost like a shadow. But that wasn't the worst part. As soon a voice that Star and Daniel recognized instantly, the voice of the gatekeeper, spoke from the scroll. You shouldn't have done that. When the chilling words passed through the dragon's skulls, the ground rumbled even more, and the cracks reached up the great ice cliff, emitting the same dark glow as the scroll in Daniel's talons. The screams of dragons didn't let up, and voices shouted louder than ever. The trio peeked over the cliff's ledge and saw the terror of what seemed to be the scroll's doing. Dark black cracks line the ice blue ground of the kingdom and the great ice cliff. Dragons took to the skies and whirled around in all directions in order to avoid the supernatural destruction. Some, however, weren't as lucky, as Daniel spotted a few charred bodies of soldiers among the chaos, as well as the slightly moving dragons barely able to keep themselves in order. He had no idea what was happening, but a slight feeling in his gut told him it was his fault. Okay, maybe stealing a supposed scroll of chaos was a pretty bad idea, from the looks of it. Daniel thought grimly. Too late now, though. We just need to get out of here. Daniel looked to Winter, who had a look of horror printed vividly on his face. We need to go now, Daniel shouted. Star was quick to her feet, but Winter only looked back at him. But my family, my tribe, they're all down there, dying, he cried, and Daniel couldn't help but feel sorry for him. It's true, and I understand it's wrong to leave them, but tell me, would they risk their lives to save you, Winter? Daniel pointed out. Winter stared at him, unwilling to answer. The answer is no. They wouldn't. Only Hailstorm would even think about it, and he's safe at the castle. Daniel concluded, if you want to save them, it's up to you, and I wouldn't mind, but just know that I highly doubt they would do the same. Either way, we need to get out. We need to get out of here. Winter shook his head. He was conflicted, but eventually agreed. Fine. How do we get out? Daniel was still working on that. They couldn't fly over the wall and would get spotted as soon as they left their position. There were no more tunnels or underground passages, and if they decided to stay here, they would probably die. He thought for a moment as he looking into his bag. Okay, sure, whatever. And he spotted the tiara that Winter had tossed him. At the time, he wasn't paying attention and didn't think much of it. But now that he saw it, he realized what it was. And that's when it came to him. There's only one way out, Daniel said, as he took out the dark blue tiara and placed it on his head. It was heavy and a little uncomfortable, not to mention silly looking, but it was needed. The only way out of this is through the great ice cliff. There was another crack and shake in the earth as Winter understood what Daniel meant. Wait. You're not saying what I think you are, right? Winter pleaded, but he knew all too well already he was wrong. I'm sorry, but if we want to get out of here alive, we're going to have to break through that wall. From what Daniel could see from Winter's expression, he wanted to yell at him, probably tell him how it's not a good idea. But he never did. Winter sighed deeply as he looked up at the magnificent structure that had guarded their kingdom from the outside world all these years. Yet, Daniel saw that there was something in his eye that conflicted with what he had previously believed. I understand. It needs to go anyways. And this is what shocked Daniel the most. Wait, what? You're completely fine with this? Daniel asked, a little too loud for comfort, and completely bewildered. Winter nodded. It needs to go. It served its purpose during the war between the tribes, but that's over now. Keeping it will just make more Icewings fear the outside. It will cause them to grow up with bad views on other dragons. It will cause them to grow up like me, he said sadly. Therefore, even if I can never see my brother again, even if I'm hated by everyone until my death, it needs to go. Daniel's eyes went wide. He's really serious about this. He placed a talon on Winter's shoulder. Hey, you won't be hated. Not by everyone, Daniel said. Yeah, Stark chimed in. You still have us, and the rest of your friends. We'll be here. Always. Winter took a deep breath. All right then, let's go tear down a wall. And that is the end of the chapter. Besides, for the author's note at the very bottom, which is considerably longer than the other ones. Hello, wonderful, amazing, beautiful people. Sure. I know I left this chapter on a cliffhanger. open parentheses, sorry, close parentheses. But I wanted to keep this chapter relatively the same as the other chapters, open parentheses, of which it wouldn't have been if I decided to write the next scene here, close parentheses. So I'm sorry for that. But since I'm in the school holidays, I should be able to get chapters out sooner. Also, this is the last part of part. This is the last chapter of part one of my book. Open parentheses, 1/3 or fourth close parentheses. So you and expect. So you and expect this book. Wait, what? So you and expect. Did you just forget a C there? Um, we love typos that make us laugh. So you and expect this book to have a lot more in store for you guys. Either way, I hope you have a good day / night. It's night for me here, and I'll see you in part two. Peace. Note: I'm going to publish the title chapter for the next part two, but there won't be any story yet. Open parentheses. Unless you're from the future, and I've already started writing the next chapters. Close parentheses. Of course, I am from the future. I know how this whole story ends. I don't, but it's funny. Anyways, reading these like author's note, it's like reading ancient history. Like these notes are probably like years ago. I don't know why I read them, but they're part of the chapter itself. So I say screw it. I'm gonna read them too. So I'm good. Good news on the 2 months thing. They soft canceled it. Yeah. They're probably not going to do it, so I'm going to be able to read it for the next 2 months. This chapter. So they got to the little great ice wall, the big beautiful wall, and the gatekeeper did a little fucky fuck with the ground and made it split open. Hailstorm met Daniel. Winter met with Hailstorm. And that's all I had to say about this chapter. See you next time.